Great.
Perfect. All right, awesome. And we are live for another episode, of course, of Dark Bites. As always, I am your host, Rick Hipson. But most importantly, here, I am with the Adams family, which I'm sure you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing that right now, boom, boom. And but I am here with the Hellbenders. So the wonderful folks that brought us that new Hellbender movie that's coming out very, very soon by from Shudder. I think that's coming out when on the 18th, on the
24th of Feb.
24th. Okay, I was way off, so thank you guys for that. So as you can see over my shoulder here, there was an incredible write-up on Rue Morgue magazine. They got to give a shout out to my fellow Rue Morguers. So that's how I discovered your movie, as I think a lot of folks will, and hopefully a lot of folks are going to continue to discover your movie. Absolutely brilliant. For those that are woefully unaware, if you guys wouldn't mind, just sort of doing a round table here as well, maybe introducing yourselves and kind of what your ultimate role is on the film with Hellbender to kind of get everybody up to speed.
Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Toby, and one of the directors and writers of Hellbender. I also play the mother, Hellbender, and I love to be here with you. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, I'm John. I'm just part of the Adams family team. We all kind of do everything together, so that's the way it is. We're super happy to be here talking with everyone, and thanks for inviting us on. And I'm sitting next to my girl Lulu.
Yeah, I'm Lulu. And I was one of the actresses in the movie, and I helped a little bit behind the camera with the sound.
I am Zelda. I play Izzy, but I also direct and do the cinematography. And yeah, I've been doing this since I was 6. I think Lulu started when she was 11. And, just since the beginning, our goal has been just to, get our films out there and see what people think and learn and grow for our next film.
Perfect. Well, definitely there's some pretty serious growth and progress, obviously, because um, one of the things that I was blown away by in watching the film and reading the write-up that I had in the magazine with you guys is that this is actually your 7th film, which I think is just amazing because you guys are, quick glance. I mean, you guys are hardly old hat. It had you take a very independent approach to the filmmaking that you do here. I mean, how many people out there as a tight-knit family are actually out there making movies on their own, in their own home, doing 100% their own way, completely with an independent heart at the heart of it all. And I thought, great, this is awesome. This is going to be a great breakout film for you guys. And I was blown away. This is actually your seventh film. Could you guys maybe take us through the process a little bit with that? And I know that you guys are doing amazing on the circuit right now with the festival. You guys have probably done tons of interviews. So I apologize if some of this stuff is kind of is a bit of a repeat on things you've probably already answered a million times. But if you don't mind answering it maybe a million and one times, sort of taking how does that go? I mean, I can't believe you guys have already done seven films, and it didn't necessarily start out with 4.
No, we love to talk.
Perfect.
Who wants to talk? You might know. I'll get started then. Okay, so
Sure.
in 2010, we were living in Los Angeles. The girls were 6 and 11 at the time, and we decided to get an old RV. We called it Harvey the RV. And we hit the road of America, and we just learned the ropes of making a film together, and we were hooked. This was a drama called Rumble Strips. It was so much fun, and we knew we had to make another, and then another and another, and so we made 4 dramas, and then kind of naturally segued into the horror genre. It and yeah, we wear every hat in the process. We love the festival circuit. Sometimes I think we make a film just so we can get to these incredible festivals and meet wonderful
Yeah.
people and talk about film.
It's fun. Some people have like home movies that they can watch, to see how their family has grown. We have like, actual movies to see how we've grown, visually, physically, but also like how we've grown as filmmakers as well. We'll go back and watch our first film, Rumble Strips, and we're like, wow, we were so naive. Like, we held on that shot for 2 minutes too long, or this shot is off center, you know?
Yeah, and slowly
Yeah.
we've all kind of grown to find our strengths. That each of us does. We're a team of four, so I think that we're starting to move really cohesively and without much thought or talk. Everybody knows what they do well, and I think as a team, we've really figured out the mechanics of what Wonder Wheel Productions is. So it's a lot of fun now because I think we can move quite quickly.
Yeah, perfect. And I can only imagine that as well. I mean, it's we say that the best and fastest way to know anybody, anybody certainly that's in a new relationship, as an example, is move in with that person. You're going to find out every little quirk, everything that's going to annoy the hell out of you, things you're going to love, things that you're not going to love so much. And I can only imagine what it's like to be a family. And obviously, you've got that familial bond, but then to do something as stressful and as challenging, as demanding as putting a movie together, let alone 7 movies now, I can only imagine, maybe some of the bickering that came about with that, to maybe learning a little bit of some of the quirks from you guys, to, where the secret stash was. I know that was a cool part of reading the magazine too. So it sounds like there's maybe little things that I'm sure you've learned about each other along the way as well. Is there anything major that maybe surprised you guys along the way? I mean, I guess for Lulu and Zelda, you're probably gonna have a different perspective because it sounds like most of your lives have been a learning process that pretty much what you were raised on set. But was there anything in particular that you guys that kind of stood out from you that you're like, maybe even question your own sanity for doing a movie together as a family, or things you learned about each other? I'd love to hear about that.
I always thought it was fun just seeing who could play like a psychopath best or who could be a totally different character. But I think nothing else ever felt, at least for me, like too big of a dramatic of a discovery just because we all started, even though Zelda and I were 6 and 11, we all were
Yeah,
babies to film in a way. And so we all
sure.
kind of figured it out little by little because we still were figuring out how our style was, what kind of shots each of us suggests. At least
Yeah.
for me, it was a lot of just getting our flow and being okay, we do these shots, this person's idea, this person's idea, this person's idea, or we might have a script and then right then be like, that doesn't work for me. How does this sound to you guys? And kind of spitball what we think our characters would say. I think that was the biggest just learning curve of just seeing each other's different types of creativity and what each suggests.
Yeah, I don't think. I
Very
mean,
cool.
one thing is I don't. I mean, we don't really fight much. One of the nice things about filming together is that we're just four of us, so we can shoot anybody's opinion, and then go home and look at it on the editing bay. It's not. There's no crazy pressure on set from outside sources. It's just our movie. So anything that needs to get discovered in the storyline or things that might pressure other industry filmmakers, that's not really applicable to us because we're just a family making a movie. So I don't think that stress kind of affects us as much. Um, you know.
Yeah, I'll just add too that there is something actually really convenient about being in the same house with the people you're making art with, because you have the luxury of every moment you're together is potentially an office meeting. So we always like to say we're slinging idea spaghetti while we're actually at a table eating spaghetti for dinner.
Idea
Every drive
spaghetti, I love
every drive in the
Bloody.
car, we're slinging these spaghetti ideas and just to see what sticks. And there's something very
it.
convenient being able to do that with the people you wake up next to, or are having meals with, or walking the dog with. uh, and it's fun. And then you have all these incredible shared experiences of the full figure feature, and the memories you've made making them. And you also have each other's back. Like when we don't know when someone's not good at something, someone else probably is. If we are having a hard time, we support each other. It's kind of a beautiful lesson in togetherness and collaboration.
Also, another thing, that one surprise that I would say that I saw was the like intelligence of a child's viewpoint as both the kids were growing up, their viewpoint on how to do a shot or what should be said. Their worldview was so smart, and sometimes as a grown-up you would think, oh, it's a 6 year old's opinion, so what? And very quickly you realize like how incredible a 6 year old or a 11 year old's opinion is, and how like unadulterated or
Adulterated?
yeah, it's unaffected, so it's very pure.
Right.
And that was something that was really cool, was realizing like when you got home and looked at their ideas on the editing bay, you were like, oh my god, it's so smart. Like I would never have thought of that.
It's also funny because 6 and 11-year-olds are really honest. They're been pretty brutal.
Oh
So we used to call each other the BS monitors.
yeah.
For
Perfect.
sure.
Well, I've got a couple tiny BS monitors as well, and I 100% understand where you're coming from. If yeah, they have no qualms about telling you something sucks or something looks terrible or what have you, and it's said with so much, unfiltered purity that you're like, I should probably look at things their way for just a moment here and weigh it out. So. Can you think of give me any examples? I mean, it's probably maybe too many to really pinpoint, and I know you guys have been through so much. I'm sure every movie is almost like remembering a whole different life chapter, that it might be difficult to kind of pinpoint those examples, because I'm sure you kind of, that's done, you're moving on. But can you give any examples at all of maybe some of those child perspectives that changed, that was a pivotal moment for you in any of the films you've made?
Well,
Go
oh,
ahead.
I do know that I think we used to have very static shots, and and Zelda began working as a co-DP, and one of the things she wanted to bring in was movement. And I come from theater, so I kind of loved the idea of almost a shot like a proscenium theater.
Yep.
And Zelda's like, man, we need some movement in here. And actually, with Hellbender, we did get some fun toys like a drone and
Mhm.
a gimbal, the Ronin to kind of move around with. And that was something that I think naturally Lulu and Zelda, from like watching music videos and cool
Yeah.
stuff, they had a different sense of what would be cool, and they've definitely contributed that to our films, and I think our films have contributed from their contributions.
I
Definitely.
think also just like the language between Amber and me, I think we kind of made it as natural as possible, kind of like how someone like actually our age would talk. Because in the writing process, it can be, you write one thing, but then you're actually like on set saying it, and it's like, wait, this isn't very natural. Like, this isn't how I'd actually say it. So, right, Lulu? Like, we kind of talked like how we would to each other.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool. And that definitely came across as well. I mean, certainly without giving too much away, the scene where you meet Lulu in the film, and that there's like a sense of awkwardness that was there, and a sense of curiosity and intrigue. It's almost like you guys were sort of, I don't know, on opposite sides of a museum looking at each other, like you're each, the other's curio. And I thought that came across brilliantly. And I had to remind myself, wait, they're actually sisters, but they're pulling this off so convincingly well that are they maybe, I don't know, sisters have been segregated their whole lives, and this is the first time they've actually met. Like that was the impression I got. Like it was pulled off so naturally. And even you, John, when you were kind of there too, and meeting, Toby for the first time as the unknowing stranger. And I mean, it was so great. I mean, that shot where you turn around and bam, it's like you just saw her for the first time, that up and close and personal, and it was fantastic. I was at that, from essentially for that moment on, I was 100% sold. I was in.
Yeah,
Oh,
two things about your
Right.
observation is they were segregated because of COVID, the two of them. So there was,
Okay.
we were separated from Lulu in all scenes. And so even when Zelda comes over and moves the chair over, it wasn't like, hey, Zelda, in this scene, you're going to come in and move the chair over. It was just Zelda being like, that's way too close for me. And she moved it, and it was just like perfect. And as in my character, one of the fun things about my character in this movie was I got to actually play a nice person. And generally, I'm the psycho in the movies. And so it was really fun to kind of be the nice guy. And then I get dispatched immediately.
Gonna say, yeah, look where that got you, eh? So much for being a nice guy.
Right, exactly.
So if anybody wants to see you playing a nice guy, this is going to be their only opportunity.
This is it. You get 5 minutes of it. That's all I got. Back to a psycho.
Exactly. No, yeah, no place for nice guys. No country for nice guys out there.
That's right.
For you, man. So no, that's awesome. And holy smokes, I mean, what an amazing scene that set that you guys have to work with as well. I mean, the cast was absolutely beautiful. And I went out then I kind of did a bit of Googling searching too, just to get a better sense of where you guys were filming. And I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. And I know, like in the the room work write up as well, that at first it was a bit of a challenge. And I love this. The entrepreneurial spirit of filmmaking is you always make the most of what you have, no matter what you have, and what your resources are. And I understand that you were maybe a little bit reluctant to start off with because it's such a beautiful, bright, vibrant environment to film in for such a dark, brooding film, that you thought that might go against you. But then the contrast of it, and I mean, obviously at the heart of the mythos, as well as certainly with witchcraft, is that it's all about life, and it's all about devouring living things in perhaps a very dark way to create new living things. And what did you have, like, was there anything you had to do to kind of make the most out of the environment that you had? I imagine lighting itself and green screening out there was probably a huge challenge between the wind, the sunlight, and things you couldn't control.
So yeah, we don't use lights, and we don't use green screens, and we always just say, like, nature is our fifth actress, and when she shows up, you grab your camera and you just follow her. And that's what we did. And she's amazing, and she's temperamental and beautiful and emotional, and we try to capture her as much as possible in however she wants to be captured. And right, Zell? So we have a million stories about how crazy that can be.
Well, we tried actually we bought a zip line, and so for the flying element we wanted, we found a perfect place to have a zip line, and we tried to use the sky as a green screen essentially, and it was very hard to kind of make that happen.
We did use a green screen. You're 100% right. Yeah.
Because we're so not used to using one, we forgot we used one.
Right.
And then we did use one, and it was even like sometimes just a white sheet, or
Cool.
in someone's barn that we borrowed.
Oh, that's okay.
To rig up like this massive rafter.
Oh, I think.
Well, actually, we have some blooper reels of it all falling apart. No, you're right. We had actually had Zelda flying on this great table, but she just kept spinning around in circles, and it was a total madness.
And then John was like pulling her,
and so
our dog was running around.
And finally, our effects guy was like, "I'm gonna just lend you a green screen." And it's funny because we had some house fans that was also kind of disastrous, but it all came together and looks phenomenal. And that was the first time we had ever used a green screen, and it was pretty neat.
We got a fan.
Yeah.
Just put two fans.
We had two fans.
They're holding the fan.
Oh man, Zelda, I hope you signed a waiver.
It was tough. Yeah, when we were trying to use what's it called, zip line, I was literally just like being dragged around like a rag doll. I was like, ugh. Yeah. It was funny because when they were filming me, they were like, "You have to actually act like you're flying and you're confident," and I was like, I can't do that. I've been paying.
I'm confident of how terrified I am. That's awesome. And I love that scene too. It's funny because I consider myself pretty sharp eye here as well, but I had to watch the movie twice before I caught that, the silhouette of you up on the post and then flying across the window. It took me the second time. I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I missed that the first time around. So
Oh,
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Not a lot of people mention those scenes at all. I don't think anyone's ever actually mentioned the flying by the window silhouette.
Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah.
How did we do that one? Did we use something different actually
that's
to get that?
all right.
Or is it
We
a secret?
no, it's not a secret.
Trade
And when
Nothing's
you
secret.
watch
secret.
it again, and you freeze it, you'll know.
It's very so we did try to use the footage of Zelda on the zip line for
Yeah.
the window, her flying by. But again, she was just spinning around like ah, you know, it looked more like a crash landing than like a powerful witch flying. And so I was somewhere and I saw this little rubber frog like in a store, and I was like, look at that little rubber frog. I was like, you know what? It looks, maybe if I put it on a fishing line and just zip it by the camera, that'll look like a person. And it did. It looked phenomenal. So that's like
Wow.
actually a little.
It's an edible frog.
Is
It's an edible candy frog. I bought all these frogs, edible and rubber, because at one point we were gonna have, Izzy like go practice her hellbender, tastes in phases, and we're like, first she'll start with a mouse, then a squirrel, then a big bullfrog, and we didn't end up doing that, but we had all these frogs hanging around.
And so Toby comes out and I've got a rubber frog in front of the camera, and I'm flying it back and forth. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to make Zelda fly in front of the window. And, it's like, and then when we put it in, it looked so good. I was like, oh my God, that's so funny how things can work.
Yeah, and it was so subtle as well, and it was brilliant. And I mean, I guess that was sort of the point as well, because there's, Toby, Mama Witch in the window, and it's like, did I just see that? Oh crap. And it's almost like you gave the character the opportunity to think that it was their imagination and to convince themselves that nope, everything's okay. My daughter hasn't quite come into her own yet. I can ignore that. I can pretend it wasn't there, and then of course question it, which is I think exactly on board with what the audience was. I know I was. I think, did I just see that? Like,
Cool.
Yeah, I'm glad that you
So
point that
cool.
out. And that was important. The other scene that you point out where we did want that, we wanted it to go by really fast. So it was like, wait a minute, what's going on? A lot of people also don't see her sitting on top of the lamppost. They just see the woman walking. And so
Well,
it's
it's so
really
subtle.
fun because it's a little, it only is revealed right at the end of the clip, and then it's taken away from you. So we love those little tiny things, that creep factor.
That's one of the things that I thought was really brilliant about the film too, when you were, going through with it as well, is that you didn't take the audience for a fool. You expected them to be there right with you all along the way. There's a lot of subtleties in there that you really have to pay attention, and if you look away or you blink for a minute, you're going to miss a lot of things. And I thought that was pretty fantastic. Was that something that was pre-planned, or was that just more a result of your own kind of intuition, your own instincts, and just the way that you tend to make movies?
I think what you just said. I think we never want to spoon feed too much to the audience. I think we trust that the audience can form their own take on what they're seeing. We do like to infiltrate our films with tiny little, I consider them subliminal, but it's
Yeah.
perfect. But it makes me so happy to hear that some of these subliminal elements are absorbed by the viewers, and you obviously are a very smart viewer who has absorbed a lot of them. But yeah, no, I think we include, even with like the witchcraft, we didn't want to explain too much of them. We so almost just want to say these are a certain kind of supernatural creature. Take them or leave them, and we're going to show you elements, pieces of their lives, but we're not going to tell you what they mean so much.
Also, this is our third horror movie, and one of the very first things we noticed about the horror crowd and the horror community is they do pay attention, they do care, and they're not, as you said, play them as a fool or something like that. They are not foolish. They're very plugged into what's going on, and so you want to treat them respectfully, and we love that about the horror crowd.
Yeah, well, you're definitely tapped into that, and I'm so appreciative for that. I admit, and I think but I don't think this is too much to be shamed for, because I think a lot of people will be in the same boat, is that Hellbender is the first one that I've seen of yours, but I 100% guarantee it's not going to be the last one. I will be looking for your other films as well. And before we wrap things up here at the end of it all, I definitely want to find out where folks can get all that good stuff and get more of the Adams family, the real Adams family, uh, and that too. So, and to kind of piggyback off of what you just mentioned, John, with you know tying in or tapping in rather to that horror crowd, to the viewers that are on the edge of the seats, really paying attention to stuff and viewing it from more of a cerebral uh, vantage point as opposed to just looking for the shocks where they can go, oh, that was spooky, and then they forget about it. It's just shot candy basically. There's so much more. Um, I'm rambling on, but my point though is I love the little nuances that you guys have in the films as well. That, and I don't know again if it was conscious or just your style, but even the most mundane scenes are so creepy. There's just something awkward about them, from everything from, in the beginning, that amazing drone shot where Toby, where you're driving into town, and the way the drone is, it's not your typical drone shot where it's not following the van like it's, they're going on a family vacation. It's not overhead like it's some kind of a new exciting beginning. It's just sort of a weird, I don't know, awkward angle. And then that one scene with you sitting on the stairs about to dig into your stash box, your teacup, and just the way that the angle is, like, I'm expecting, okay, what's going to happen? Some evil genie's going to pop out, some snake's going to come out and like bite her head off, or something terrible is going to happen. And there were so many scenes that were like that, where I don't want to use the word boring, but it should have been a time for the audience to, okay, I'm going to relax. There's just nothing going on in this scene. Whereas it was just so awkward and creepy that I was at the edge of my seat expecting something terrible to happen, even when it did. I'd love to hear you guys take on that. I mean, what was that all about? Was it accidental? Was it on purpose? Or was it just who you guys are as Hellbenders?
That's so neat.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think especially with the like aspect of the totem, that's about like seeing a lot of their world through kind of an unseen angle. That's like, kind of the mom's perspective on her spying on Izzy. So it's not an angle that, we normally see as humans.
Right.
But also, I think I remember while we were making Hellbender, we had just watched The Ring again. And something about The Ring is they have so many like false like jump scares, and like times where you're like, there's gonna be a jump scare and then nothing happens. Like, they'll go through the fridge and you're like, all right, there's gonna be, the monster when they close the fridge again, but there's nothing. And so I think it was fun playing around with that, building up like false tension and creating kind of like awkward feelings of something should be happening, but it's not.
Yeah, no, 100%. So it's like, I guess the idea is, I mean, shock is very fleeting, but getting in and creating that actual sense of dread and fear, that's the stuff that sticks around for a while.
We also love the idea of perspective to show power or weakness. And it's like, like when the mother looks down, she's looking down. If you see, whenever she looks down into the basement's lit kind of like hell. It's very hot. And if you look back up, so she's looking down into hell, and hell's looking back up into her, and it's very cold. And it's like those perspectives of power are important to us. Just like her sitting, grabbing her power, we're looking up at her like she's sitting on a throne of power, because she is sitting on a throne of power, because she's hiding the power from her daughter, but she's still taking it. And so we want to show the hypocrisy of that. That's something that we talk about a lot, is where do we put the camera to show who's in charge. And in fact, we do that again later when Izzy comes back, when she gets introduced to her power. And you notice that the mother is standing at the top of the steps, still thinking that she's in the place of power. But then she kind of has to start walking down. And as she's walking down out of her highest point of power, she's also coming to an understanding of, there's a new power in town, and now everything has changed. And we talk about that kind of stuff a lot. So the fact that you're talking about it is wonderful, because that means that we're all talking about it together.
There's also like sorry, you want to go?
No.
There's also like in like religious texts and images, there's a classic image of the Virgin Mary holding Jesus. And if you look closely, like in one of the scenes, we kind of reflect that sense of like relationship and power in after they do, the maggot scene.
Yeah,
And
young.
yeah, the mom is kind of drugged out. So
Yeah.
this was the first movie ever that we kind of like, took inspiration from iconography. And I took AP art history and I was like, this is so fun, kind of reflecting all this.
The Pietà, you're
Yeah.
so right
The
with that.
Pietà, right.
Yeah. And you know what, too, Rick, I think sometimes there is just some, I think sometimes we're not even aware that maybe, like you say, some of it is by accident because we are just weird. We're weird people and we haven't gone to film school and we're just kind of going by our gut instincts. And sometimes when you wear every hat in a film, you become so, it becomes such a big part of you that those things I think just naturally sometimes present themselves, what you're talking about, those creep factors, because we're kind of living it and we don't think too much about it. At some point, we're so immersed into what we're trying to create that I think it just it presents itself more than us trying to find it.
Yeah, it's actually, I think it's really cool because, like you said, like none of us have gone to film school. We've all just learned it on our own for 12 years
Yeah.
and learning from our mistakes and doing what feels right and just like starting out super like naive. And I think it's been really fun because people will ask, oh, who is your inspiration? Oh, were you doing this shot like according to the rule of thirds? And it's kind of like, maybe, but it's also, it just like, it feels right. And
Yeah.
I think that's what we've learned as filmmakers, just like doing what feels right and building our own style, not necessarily based off of other people's, but just like according to what we've done and what we've learned.
And we've come up with a slogan, which is, the industry slogan is never break the 180-degree rule with the camera.
Hmm.
And our slogan is never break the 360-degree rule.
Actually, I think John
That's
used
awesome.
the 365-degree rule.
5 degree. It's
All
okay to go just a little bit more, right?
right.
So, hey, I think Matrix broke that rule for everybody, so you're covered.
Yay.
So that's awesome. That's funny, we talk about inspiration too. I'm thinking when you were saying that, Zelda, I'm like, well, there's like some dead rotting animals in the backyard. Does that kind of count as inspiration? It's like playing off of your own environment. So that's
Yeah,
yeah, that's brilliant.
definitely.
And
Nature's our biggest inspiration for sure. It just brings us like carcasses, and we're like, okay, we're obviously shooting a scene around this dead deer.
exactly kind of makes you really question those ceremonial scenes that you have in there. It's like, maybe you're actually conjuring up a little bit more than what you thought besides just a kick-ass movie. You're bringing you're asking nature to bring you things and it is saying, here you go.
Good point. I always
don't
say
tell
that
Kiddo.
Toby's a little witch. She's always cooking us up food and stuff, and it makes you feel better the next day. And it's like, what did she put in there, little witch baby?
Yeah.
I'll never tell.
What kind of ideas were brought into the making of this spaghetti here? So what's going on? So no, that's awesome. So, and and I love some of the theatrical scenes too. Like you were saying that you don't, and I think you guys maybe you're shortchanging yourself just a little bit, because I know, as you mentioned, that you don't have any experience, you're just kind of doing your own thing. But what's really cool is obviously you've got your own unique kind of backgrounds and your own unique styles. And Toby, I noticed that, and again, there's so many different layers of this film. And I know that if I've only watched it twice, I know if I watched it a few more times, I'll probably pick up on the other little things. Even to the point where there's some of the scenes that are absolutely gorgeous, and that makes so much sense because I can see definitely, Zelda, with some of your modeling background, you obviously have an eye for, for framing and imaging and getting things right that way and the focus of it all, and certainly with with your mom, with Toby, getting that theatrical and having that color scheme in those still shots. Like I was thinking of the one in particular with Zelda and your mom, with you guys sort of, well, there's one scene on the couch that's pretty brilliant as well. It's gorgeous near the end of it. But even before that, where you're facing each other and you're on sort of, I guess your heads are sort of on, I think on the carpet, I'm guessing. And the contrast of the colors is just brilliant. And it's so cool where you're almost at the apex of that power struggle where, and again, I hope I'm not going to give too much away, but essentially it's almost like you guys are kind of equals. And that hierarchy, which of course is your mom, is feeling threatened by that, saying, well, I'm still your mom, so if you do this and you go against me, I'm going to consume you. I'm gonna, I'm gonna get you, kind of thing. And I mean, some of those subtle things in there were just, again, just absolutely brilliant. Um, was there a lot of, like, do you guys do a lot of pre-planning for all of your shots beforehand, or is a lot of it kind of spontaneous, or like with shots like that, for example?
I I think it's pretty spontaneous, to be honest. Like, we each kind of have an image and an idea of what's going to happen. Many times we don't even go in with a set script. If anything, we just like write down some specific lines that we want to happen and in what order in our notes
Right.
pad. And then we show up, get the shot that someone takes the camera and puts up the shot. And then from then we kind of evolve. A lot of times we'll kind of change the shot according to like, oh, I don't think this angle is right, or I don't think it's depicting, the tone too right in this scene. What do you guys think?
Well, that particular shot that you're mentioning comes from the fact that we had made a music video during we were shooting the movie, and Zelda and I had a little song that we had put together, and we were like, oh, let's make this little music video, and we had just bought a micro lens, so we shot the whole video with a micro lens, and we fell in love with it. We showed it to Toby, and Toby was like, well, I just wrote a scene for Hellbender, and I just want to do exactly what you guys did there. And that is what we did. We just went, and so if you look on YouTube, there's a video called Drive that was
Okay.
basically the birth of that scene because it just
Cool.
worked. So it was kind of just Toby looking at a video and being like, oh, this is perfect for what needs to happen in Hellbender. One of the great things about Toby is that she's always thinking about the the structure of the story and how everything needs to come in circles, and so she makes sure that there's depth to what we're doing. And it was fun that she saw this video and was like, okay, cool, we're going to add depth because that scene that you're talking about is very important,
Mhm.
because in a sense it frees Zelda's character to be who she's going to become because her mom threatens her. And at that point, she realizes it's a Hellbender and a Hellbender. There's two Hellbenders now.
Yeah.
And it's a great scene, and it's a big turning point in the movie, but it's done very quietly. And just the fact that we're talking about it, this is the first time we've ever talked about it with anybody, is really great because you're picking out, to me, that's the middle of the seesaw where it finally goes clunk.
Right, yeah, that's where the intensity really kind of cranks up, and I think that that scene as well. One of the beautiful parts is, although we're talking about witchcraft, and although we have no idea where this particular power struggle is going to go, I think it's a power struggle that so many people, especially those that have had teens and such, clearly not you guys because you're all on the same page. So I don't want to get anybody in trouble here. But I noticed that a lot of people can really relate to that power struggle. When you've got that rebellious teen that's, maybe about to go through puberty, isn't quite there yet, and they're discovering the world. And of course, with the age of the internet, that's happening at a much more alarming rate than it ever used to. Where you've got this not quite an adult, not quite a teen, who all of a sudden is having that power struggle and question everything that their parents have been teaching them, and like, well, that's not what I'm not really getting things from the world that you're trying to provide me. There's, I'm really questioning everything. And then that's what I thought. I think a lot of people are going to really relate to that, quite a bit, and be that much more curious about how this is going to play out exactly.
Right.
And,
It was so fun playing with like parental and like child relationship and that sort of theme in the movie because, John and Toby have raised Lulu and me, pretty much like as equals. We always kind of say that we're friends before like parent and child. But it's really interesting because like we see relationships around us where, it might be a really strict parent and you'll see that the child becomes, more sneaky the more that like a parent tries to like hide something, the
that's true.
more the child is inclined to do it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens in Hellbender. The mom is keeping away Izzy's true nature from her, and that's just gonna make Izzy want to pursue it far more.
100%. I mean, you were even getting right into her dreams, and you're like, "Oh, look at me."
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. And that one scene, I mean, I guess that's where you maybe had the white screen up where you're in the dreams, and I mean, that looked like so much fun. With you guys tackling each other and rolling around, and then vomiting that. Oh, that looked like so much fun, but that was so gross. And I have to ask. I hope you don't mind this, and then I know I've said this a couple times. It's hard to not reference specific scenes and things that are happening as we're talking about them. Hopefully, for people watching this, they'll be like, "Oh, I got to see this scene now too." But I promised a friend of mine I would ask, "What is it that you guys were vomiting into each other's mouths?" Tell me that wasn't just something you found in the woods.
Toby, what's your mixture?
No, it's just your classic, chocolate syrup, strawberry syrup, Caro syrup with a little bit of brown rice and like
Healthy.
puffed rice to kind of give it that sort of maggoty texture.
Yeah, but some of that texture got in my mouth, and I was not expecting like to bite into something. I was just expecting like a liquid. But when there's like a change in texture and you're not expecting something like hard, you freak out. So my reaction in Hellbender when she throws up on my face was completely natural. Oh, I can
And I have to ask as well, when you're talking about trying to get that maggoty texture, is that an assumed texture, or is this by personal experience for the sake of art?
No, I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not very interested in eating maggots. But in our
Okay.
last film, our previous film, The Deeper You Dig, we have a scene with maggots as well and blood that John's character pukes
Yeah.
that dish of maggots.
The only person who really has experience with worms and stuff like that is Lulu. As a kid,
Quiet one. It's always the
that
quiet
was
one.
his big trick.
Please add context.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Lulu would usually as a kid be like, and the adults would just be like, "What is wrong with that kid?" It was
Oh,
awesome.
man.
She would terrify everybody with earthworms.
She
So
was
is that
in
your
horror
payback?
long before any of
Yeah.
us.
We're just trying to
That's
keep
awesome.
up with that little kid Lulu.
Lulu's the wormitarian, not me.
The
Right.
wormitarian. So is that your payback scene, Lulu, when you're all in the, doing the tequila and stuff, and it's like, "All right, Zelda, your turn."
Your turn now.
You know what? I think Lulu was just, when she was playing Amber, she was just acting as herself because in real life, she's always making me eat things I don't want to eat. She's like,
Uh,
eat this, whatever kind of meat it is, or weird haggis or something. And I'm like, I don't want to eat it. I don't want to eat it.
that's awesome. And this is probably why. Are you guys all vegetarians now, or?
John is a carnivore.
I
Toby
fry
is.
maggots with garlic and butter.
Sorry, you just said you like maggots and butter?
No, I would say I would fry up some maggots as long as they got,
Oh, okay, yeah.
garlic and butter. It's like, it's like the first time I had snails. I was like, wow, they're amazing. They taste like garlic and butter.
Exactly, yeah, same thing. It was, other than, just a very squishy version of it. So,
Very squishy, right?
yeah.
Escargot. The horror.
Yes. Oh, that's so gross. So speaking of horror and all that kind of stuff as well, I know you guys sort of touched on this before, but I was so fascinated by the rest of what you explained. I didn't want to interrupt that, but I know you mentioned, and I guess we're bringing up our own segue with the pool scene. John, you mentioned earlier that was wasn't necessarily part of the script, but just part of what you're doing because of the already, automation of segregation, where Zelda, when you sat down beside Lulu, just by default, you kind of pulled the chair away and it's like, I can't let you get close. With that and the whole segregation thing and this wonderful pandemic that we're all, going through and totally exhausted with, would you say, because I know that obviously everything you did was primarily in your own home with your own family, save for some of the extras that were in the original scene. And of course, the one scene with the cop as well, even that was obviously separated, definitely at least 6 feet apart. Would you say that this film was a lot of it kind of a product of the pandemic and being forced to have to make a film in such, I'm not going to say confined spaces because obviously the Catskills isn't confined, but certainly in a confined space within that area. Was the pandemic a product of that, or was Hellbender always something that was brewing and you just wanted to look for an opportunity to make that? But what the hell, let's make it now because why not? No, it's a pandemic.
We originally started out with this idea. Well, first it started out with this idea called the Devil's Daughter. And then we were like, who do we think we are? We don't have the budget for the devil and hell and all that. So we went to more of a minuscule level on creating our own mythological creature, a Hellbender. And then we started coming up with a story. We told ourselves we were going to have a way bigger production. We were going to, hire more people, work in bigger facilities, and have like way more characters and storylines. We were going to like have a best friend or a romantic relationship and like shoot in a public school. And then COVID came around and we were like, okay, that's not gonna happen actually. We need to go back to like where we thrive best, which is on just our little minuscule level. And personally, I'm really happy that COVID kind of came around and put us in our place because I'm really happy with the kind of small scale of Hellbender because it makes it feel way more isolated and lonely and personal. I think it's an extremely personal story. So yeah, the only scene that has like lots of people that aren't social distancing are the opening scene.
Yeah.
Is the opening scene. That was 3 days before like the COVID shutdown.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that was very good for timing.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I think we didn't want to set out to make a COVID movie, but I think there definitely are a lot of hints at the isolation that COVID brought and some of the other factors that COVID brought, like coming to terms with your identity. We all had to spend a lot of time alone with ourselves during COVID. And when you're spending a lot of time alone with yourself, you tend to learn a lot of things about yourself, kind of like Izzy did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the whole road goes inward. Sorry, Lily, you're gonna.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna add that we also, I think, got to take advantage of that and go to these great sites. Like, we shot all over, and so they also drove across and met me. I was teaching in the Pacific Northwest, and
Okay.
we did some of the shooting out there, some of the more horror scenes, and kind of dark spaces, and we got to go to these amazing places. And we still were doing distance, so they would be in their trailer, and I would be camping in my tent, or eventually in my car on the really rainy days,
Yeah.
and just be in the camping space right next to them, and we would get to go to these amazing sites. And no one would be there in these beautiful Pacific Northwest sites, that are so dark and wet and scenic, they howl without sound.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like for context, we bought a truck and a trailer and decided to head out on America and shoot a lot of our movie just on the road. So we went up to places like Maine and Yellowstone and Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, like Lulu said. So a lot of like the dream sequences that you see are shot in these beautiful, like monumental places. And I
Okay.
think it just adds to like the sacredness of those dream sequences and yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I know it's. And how much? Because I know when you're going through those and talking about, certainly a lot of the, playing the parts in those monumental areas as well. Obviously speaking of monumental, the whole witchcraft folklore in there was very heavily embedded. Obviously, that's what the whole movie's about. Was there a lot of research that was put into, and again, I'm sure this is a question that you've been asked often, was a lot of research put into the more of the intricacies of witchcraft and, for example, making up some of those runes and some of the, I guess, the mythos that go along with that, and certainly the cycles rather of a witch? Or was that all stuff that was already of interest to you that you drew from your own interest and your own knowledge of that interest?
We drew from our own knowledge. I mean, we are super influenced by nature, and we live in the wilderness in a pretty isolated place. There's a lot of death around us, but there's also a lot of life. So nature was kind of giving us all those answers right off the bat. and we did want to create. It was important for us to do a little research, more for inspiration, or like how you might get in the mood before like a soccer game. You listen to great music. Like we
Yeah,
would like read about cool, women in ancient lore, to get in the mood. But we didn't want. But we really wanted to make our own rules about what these hellbenders are. Um, and in fact, we only say the word witch once. And in my mind, she's just using that word because it's something that this human ranger can, by saying we're kind of like a cross between a witch, a demon, and an apex predator. I don't
yeah,
think they consider themselves witches. They consider themselves their own entity of hellbenders, but she'll use
right.
that word to, throw at a human, because a human will kind of get that. But they do have spells. They do have their own brand of craft that they're using, and we really had fun coming up with what those spells are, or like
Yeah,
the sigil to spy, or the things on the rock, like you can do this and you can climb trees and now you can see in the dark. We had
yeah,
so much fun.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think we
That's
love camping and we love being in nature. And when you're in nature, there's so much hidden magic all around you. You look
hmm
at algae and it's got this beautiful magic color. Mushrooms come in all different, and you just have to think to yourself, oh, if only you knew how to utilize that magic. And we let them. They were born with that knowledge of
yeah.
the hidden, how to utilize hidden magic.
Very cool. Right from the mushrooms to all the the shots that you have. Even I mean, it's kind of neat. Like even some of the shots you've got like, these little caterpillars in there.
Yeah.
These beautiful, vibrant things. Again, if because you guys did your job and got that creep factor, and I'm again I'm this beautiful little colorful caterpillar. I'm wondering, oh my God, what horrible things are going to happen to this little guy, and
Yeah,
all
but
that
also
stuff.
you
So
think about that, like that whole scene is shot, it opens up with a close up of a mushroom.
yeah,
So, we all know magic mushrooms. We all know that, that whole concept. And she's talking, it's the first time she's actually talking to her daughter about magic. There
yeah,
it's a close up of a mushroom with them in the distance. And then they're in this beautiful spot that we had found from hiking. That's the ground was covered in moss, the trees were covered in moss. I mean, it was magic. And we knew we had to film a scene there, and we made that scene because of that forest.
yeah, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I can only imagine you guys probably did something for the tourism industry out in these areas too, because people are going to see this in the film and wanting to go in and check them out. I know for myself, I mean, I'm a big nature guy too, and that river. My favorite place in the world is just to be by a great river, and yeah,
Hmm.
it definitely was very intriguing. I'm like, I want to go there.
Oh, thanks.
Hope they
Yeah,
won't
that's
run into any hellbenders, but I want to go there anyway. Take my chances.
Keep a lookout,
100%. 100%. So how are we doing for timing, guys? Are we okay for a couple of more quick questions, or?
yeah.
Sure.
Absolutely.
All right, really appreciate that. And I was taking care of business in the background too, so we had no interruptions, which is fantastic. So that's really good. So if you don't mind me talking too, because I know obviously you mentioned music a few times. Music is certainly something really important. And speaking of nature, here comes my cat.
Oh, oh,
There we
beauty.
go. Yeah, she is. She's got to be in every scene, every shot, no matter what. So
I'm
just be
sure
thankful you're getting the front end of
Complaint.
her. She's a trickster. Sometimes, as soon as she hears anybody stirring, she'll be right there. When I come home from my day job, she'll be right at the door. When I wake up, she hears me stirring. She's right there in my face, and I don't always know which end I'm going to get when I open my eyeballs up. So, yeah,
Cats are crazy. I love them.
they are. I'm thinking about a dog here, but don't tell them that. So, but yeah, I've got two cats, but that one is special. So back to the music. So obviously this is something that it's hard to talk to you about the film without talking about the music as well. Clearly you're very heavily influenced by that. And like you said, some of the shots that you did in the film were born from the inspiration of music videos. Uh, how important is that with your music now? Is that something that was always going to be in that that's just simply part of what you do? Like did the music come before the films, or was it just sort of all one giant creative output for you?
This was definitely a marriage of both. This movie actually, Hellbender, was really put into full motion because we made a video called Black Sky that inspired us to be like, okay, cool, we have to make this movie, and so the two of them are completely interconnected. We had learned from a movie that we had made right before this called The Deeper You Dig. It's a pretty heavy duty movie, and one of the things that we decided after doing that one was we needed a little more, or we wanted a little more fun in our next movie, a little more fun and a little more joy. And we thought the perfect way to do that was to drive the movie by music. And so also by utilizing music, you can tell a story, you can tell a lot of storyline in a short amount of time because the lyrics can basically tell people what they need to know, and the feeling of the music can also give them the emotions they need to get through the story, so that you're not slowed down with a lot of talking and a lot of yapping.
Perfect. Yeah, and it worked beautifully. Lulu and John, which now are the music obviously, excuse me, in the film? It's just Toby and Zelda that are in the band because that's all that there is. Which I thought was pretty awesome too, because I felt that gave an even deeper sense of isolation to the viewer, but also a deeper sense of that connection between mother and daughter, because they've got this amazing connection with the music and this awesome thing that, of course, Zelda, you really want to share that with the world, but you can't. So it's like you got this beautiful thing that can't be shared, which deepens that isolation. But my question though is, I imagine, are all of you involved in the actual band of okay, so what do you guys do, John and Lulu? What do you guys play in the band?
I just try to sing the little bits that I can.
These are actually the girls are amazing singers. They each have a singular tone and voice of their own, but together they sound phenomenal. And so that's basically how it works is we all influence each other on what we like, where we want to be musically, whether it's 80s hardcore to Courtney Barnett, what's inspiring us at the time. And we have our inputs. I write and perform a lot of the music, but then the girls all together fill out the vocals because the vocals are what makes it singular.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
and the
also
vocals.
cool. Sorry, you go.
No, that's it. No, you go ahead.
Just briefly, it's cool that we all we have different voices when we speak, but when we sing, we're all kind of similar and can get just slightly different ranges. And so it's kind of like they birthed their own little musical group of, I want to hit this octave and this octave, but I can't myself. And so we can all kind of add our voices on top of each other, which is pretty fun.
Well, it's cool just listening to Lulu's voice. It sounds like she's chewed a couple nails and swallowed a little smoke, and but each of them. But then Zelda has a kind of angelic, demonic kind of tone because it's very clear and a little higher, and you can tell from Toby's voice that it's like just has this foundation that's unmovable. And all that stuff sounds a little esoteric and weird, but if you're an engineer or a musician out there, you know that it's not. And how you put those, we're really learning how to put those voices together. And now we're really coming up with some powerful stuff. Where our next movie called When the Devil Roams is driven by a soundtrack that the three of them are singing on. And now we've really pushed the sound through the hourglass, and what's coming out on the bottom is, I think, really original and really cool.
That is awesome. I can't wait to hear that and to watch that new one too. Like, do you know the music, is this something that you more do for fun and as a tie into your films? Or, I mean, obviously you guys are very good, so I'm guessing you don't do it just for the films, but like, do you guys actually tour? Do you go play in clubs? Do you hit the road?
John and I used to play in clubs when I was younger. I used to play drums, and we used to be a little two-person band. When we came out with one of our films, I don't remember which one, we played in Texas and had a live show there, which was
Oh,
like
cool.
my favorite ever. We played in New York City maybe twice, or I don't really remember. But then I started getting more interested in singing. We haven't played live since because of like COVID,
Yeah.
but we've always been made music videos since I can remember. and been making music for a long, long time.
One of the beautiful things about making music for movies is that you're not making it for a crowd. You're not making it for an audience that's like in a rock club. You have a lot more freedom to create when you're making music for movies. So it's a lot of fun to do that actually. When you play live, you are confined to what you can perform live. But when you make movies, I mean, when you make music for movies, there's no confinement. You can do anything you want. You can bang sticks together, or have an old car as the driving tone. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's not what can I bring to the stage. It's what do I want to apply to the movie, and it's very freeing.
And I should mention, there's going to be a soundtrack coming out for
I was going to
Hellbender.
ask you about that. Okay.
Yeah. So the band is Hellbender, but the E's are sixes. But
Okay.
it's the sound, so it's the band Hellbender performing the soundtrack for the movie Hellbender. And Ship to Shore is putting out a vinyl album for that
Ooh.
this spring.
If you don't mind me, one of the questions I wanted to ask you as well, that I was really curious about all this, because um, the special effects I thought were absolutely brilliant. Again, I went into this, I mean, I was so surprised all the way through it for so many different reasons that we've already talked about, the different layers, the different innuendos. The acting chops are absolutely brilliant. The awkward moments between Lulu and Zelda were so spot on as well, that it seemed like I'm watching this film that's got this big budget for all these incredible sound effects. You've got all these, SOG actors that are in here, doing their thing, all kinds of experience and backgrounds, but that's clearly not quite the case. Yet you pulled it off all brilliantly. And I got the impression of this big, huge budget. What did you now for doing the budgeting? Obviously, you guys have probably found a way to maybe perfect that a little bit as you've been going through the other films and such. I know a lot of films these days, some of the smaller budget ones are going the crowdfunding route, that sort of thing. Did you find that you had to use that as an avenue to try to bring in some investors with this, or did you find that through your other films, all you had to simply say is, hey, we're going to make a film, and everybody was flocking to you guys saying, hey, get us on board, how do we invest in this?
Oh, we did not do any kind of. We just made this film with what we were able to make. We didn't crowdfund or go
That's
outside,
impressive.
go for outside sources at all. So it was made very humbly. And for all of our films up to Hellbender, we really just, the budget sort of never got in the way of our making the film, because our mantra has been, well, let's use what we have.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And yeah, and clearly that worked out super, super well, because again, you gave me the impression of this. I'm not going to say Hollywood, because Hollywood doesn't have the balls to make this kind of a film, but it definitely seemed like it got that big studio feel to it. There, we'll go with that one, the big studio feel.
Well, this is a
Thank
good
you.
time. This is a good time to mention, though. Part of that is because we have a fifth family member, and his name is Trey Lindsay. And right behind you is the Rue Morgue cover, and that is his art. That's his effect.
Oh,
That
very
does
cool.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
and so
people like that.
Trey is just part of our family, and he does things
That's
like
cool.
this for us because he's an artist and a friend. And we'll say things like, hey, can you make Izzy into this ancient high priestess with a ton of power? Like she's going to raise her hands and flames are going to shoot up in the sky. And he'll say, yes, exactly. I would love to do that. And that's what he does. And we talk through the effects. He tells us how to shoot it so that he can best utilize the footage to create great imagery. And he's a yes man and a wonderful person. And so a lot of that bigger budget feel comes from his artistry.
Wow, that's amazing. So he's really is in every sense of the term then kind of the unsung hero of the film behind the scenes.
Absolutely. And that's what's beautiful about him is he doesn't need anybody to sing for him. He's an artist and he loves doing art. And he's just a terrific human.
Yeah, and I can only imagine too that it's been so tough for the visual guys over at Rumor to kind of go through the film and pick out which ones they're going to use to represent it, which one's going to go on the cover. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted that job because I would have ended up putting some big, huge collage on there, and it would have been a whole jumbled mess. But I'm like, but I want to get everything in there that was cool. I mean, there's so many cool scenes in this film.
Well, this
Um,
is a
That must have
good
been.
time to mention Rue Morgue and the beauty of that organization to support not just us, but all along their entire, existence. They support independent filmmakers, people who are.
Yeah,
It's not. They're not like an industry, you know, uh, patsy. They're people that are like pushing film, and it's really
yeah.
cool. Like we admire them so much and always have, so it's just it's great to have people like that. That's another thing that's wonderful about the horror community is they're incredibly supportive to everyone, not
Hmm.
just a multi-million dollar movie, which we all love, but
Right.
also a $10,000 movie.
Hey, by the way, Rue Morgue is going to be holding something called Cinema Macabre, where
Yep.
it's a viewing party. They're going to do that on February 24th, the night that it premieres on Shudder.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's going to be like at 8:30 on February 24th. They're going to be doing this like it's like trivia and kind of a little get together, and then there's the viewing,
Well,
actual viewing at 9, and then after the viewing, we're going to have a Q&A also with all of us. So that's going to
very
be the
cool.
premiere night on front that Rue Morgue is throwing.
They're
Oh,
just
that's
such a
very cool. Okay.
beautiful organization.
They really are. And I mean, I'm pretty proud to be, the tiny little contributor that I am for them, and that they've been so supportive, and for that exact reason too, that they really pushed not just the big block or the big blockbuster stuff, but also more the independent stuff. Which, I mean, let's face it, even the big blockbuster movies at the heart of it all, everybody that's contributed to that, these big producers, that's how they started eventually. I
Right.
mean, you got Steven Spielberg, who's obviously way up here, that started way down here. I think Maximum Overdrive was his first one, and I mean that was about as kind of low budget as it gets, essentially.
Also,
So
we have to say, like again about Rue Morgue. With the deeper you dig, they had mentioned us in Rue Morgue, and our effects guy, who now landed this
yeah,
beautiful image on their cover, wrote and was like, "The pinnacle of horror mentioned you guys," and he sent us this Rue Morgue, and he was like, "This is the." He was like, he was speechless and paralyzed because Rue Morgue had mentioned us. And it was so
yeah.
cool that it came to a full circle where his art and their amazing organization come together. It's like just this great experience that we all got to be a part of.
Yeah, that's so cool, and I'm sure that Remark is probably very proud of that as well. That they got to be a part of that as well, and push what they're represent what they're all about, which is independent, successful, diehard, do or die filmmakers.
Yeah.
Which I get the impression you guys very are. It's kind of ride or die. It's like whatever it takes, whatever you have, let's make the vision come to fruition on the screen. So I think that's super super cool. And how many families can do all that and actually still be together too? I think that's the incredible thing. I mean, I couldn't even imagine. I got some oddballs, and I mean, we all have them, but I've got some oddballs in my family that might make a good sequence on, I don't know, some talk show or something like that. Some scandalous talk show. But as far as actually getting together making a movie, I couldn't even imagine. So, so it'd be something else. Now this film too, like you mentioned, there's a lot of bloopers and things too. Is that I guess there's going to be a DVD release coming down the pipeline as well, I imagine.
There will be through, yeah, Shudder's putting that together, and I think
Oh,
it's
okay.
RLJ is doing that. Um,
Yeah, it's fun. There's going to be background interviews. There's going to be a bunch of bloopers. There's going to be some probably some extra music on it, things like that. Shutter's been super cool about putting together something that'll be fun.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I look forward to that. I mean that's one of the things that I love about doing these, chats like this, as well as that I've always been that kind of nerd where I love the behind the scenes stuff. I mean, a lot of times I get a movie, and the first thing I'll do is I'll watch all the special features to find out how they did it first of all, and then watch the movie so I can really appreciate it, get into it. So I like to do things a little bit strange and backwards that way. But yeah, no, it's fascinating to me, the work that goes into it. So, and
Well, we're excited for you to see it.
yeah, no, 100%. I really hope that everybody that's watching this, that they jump out of their seats and they go and they see it as fast as they can. The 28th, did you say?
24th.
24th. Thank you. I was going to say the 24th, but I'm like, no, maybe not. But yeah, the 24th, that's just around the corner. So hopefully people will jump out there and see that. And I'm going to try to get this video nice and out there nice and quick as well, because it's the least I can do. Because you guys have, I was thinking about this. I don't know if you guys realize this, but not only are you all amazing for taking a chunk out of your day to come and, you know, and hang out with me today, but of all the days to do that, you're choosing to sacrifice your Valentine's Day to be here and, you know, kind of interrupt in whatever sort of sacrificial rituals you guys usually do on Valentine's Day. So I really appreciate that.
This is how we want to be spending our Valentine's Day. This is like our ideal way. So thanks for providing us with
Too
that.
kind. Thank you very much. So, no, that's fantastic. And for those that are wanting to get even deeper into not just the mythos and the fascination that is this movie, but the mythos and fascination that is the Addams Family, where can they find more of your stuff?
Our website is wonderwheelproductions.com, and you can see trailers for all of our films on there and find out where to watch them as well. But all the previous ones are on Amazon, and then The Deeper You Dig is on most other venues like iTunes and you know, pretty much anywhere you can watch a film. Yeah, Hellbender will be on Shudder on the 24th exclusively for a few months.
Perfect.
And then our Instagram is adams.family.films, and Twitter is adams_films.
And we're all on Facebook, and we love talking to people. So
Yeah, and if you want to listen to our music, we're on
Yes.
Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Our band is just called Hellbender, but all the E's are sixes. And you
Yes.
can like watch some music videos that inspired a lot of Hellbender as well on YouTube.
All right, beautiful. Yeah, I'll definitely be doing that as well. So no, this is fantastic. Thank you again so much, guys. I really, really appreciate this. Can't thank you all enough. It's been such a pleasure to get in there. And I mean, yeah, I guess like you said, this is kind of the perfect thing. I mean, what's a better way to celebrate Valentine's Day than to talk about things that we love? So
Absolutely. Thank you
There we
so
go.
much for letting us
thank
talk
you,
about
Rick.
things we love. Yeah, thank you
nice
for the
talking
great
to you.
questions.
yeah, and
Thank
thanks for
you.
your great eyes on our movie and your great mind.
oh, my pleasure, and thank you. Was there anything else you guys wanted to kind of add to that, or anything anything else? Lulu, I know you've been a little bit quiet in the background as well. So anything else you want to throw out there and
No, I just love doing it. It was
put
great
you on the
being
spot, right?
with Wes, Distance or not yet. I like listening to them talk all the stuff and add in little story points and stuff. I don't mind.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much again for everything you guys do. Can't wait for the next film. Are you working on that now, or is that sort of in pre-planning?
Yep, we're firing away. It's hard for us to stop. You know, it's we got the rule. It's called no stopping.
Perfect. That's a good rule. I definitely advocate that rule. So perfect. Well, thank you. One more question, sorry, I did want to ask you guys as well, is regarding the script too, if you guys don't mind. Is that a collaborative effort as well, or is it sort of everybody puts their ideas on out there and then is there one or two of you that kind of is responsible for the script? Because man, you guys have some great lines in there.
It's a total collaboration. Like, we rarely have a full script that we work with, and often we'll start with something, but it's just a template we jump off from. And then while we're shooting the scene, as we're performing and as we're directing, we all realize, oh, this is what the scene is about, and that's where the script really comes to life in real time.
But it's important to know that we all cut the vegetables, but Toby makes the soup.
I like that. That's good. You guys are making me so hungry. We're starting with spaghetti, we're ending with soup.
Yeah, food is important. Obviously, our whole movie's about it. You know.
Exactly, and I'm sure did Peter write you any fan mail regarding some of the scenes about your ingredients? I can only imagine. So
Maybe a cookbook is in order.
I would buy that cookbook. I would buy that cookbook. So no, that's so great. Yeah, I know there's the one scene there with Zelda. I think she gave that one line that I think was my favorite in there about asking what you were asking her, Toby, your character was asking her what she was doing, and her reply was that it was so creepy and it was so like a ripple on the surface, but there's so much underneath it, where she said, you know, she was out hunting for a laugh, but she only found a ghost, but it was a ghost or something. I'm like,
oh yeah,
I'm just gonna pause that and let that soak in. Like, that was such a cool line, and so many cool innuendos with the scripts and all the way through it. It was really cool.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. And that's why I want to ask who was kind of all responsible for the script. It was brilliant from A to B. So A to Z
Thank
rather.
you so much,
Thank you.
Rick.
So all right, guys. Well, thank you very much. I will leave it on that. I'm going to go and get some lunch now. And thank you very much. And I look forward to hopefully chatting with you on the next one.
That would be
Please,
wonderful.
we'd love that.
Cool. Very cool. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.
Have a great
Listeners.
one.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Bye for now.